bet you 1,000,000 bajillion people would pay to play a game about a love triangle between a monkey, a princess, and a dude with a mustache. So we smoked some dank weed and watched King Kong a couple times and proceeded to make that video game. And it worked! 1,000,000 bajillion people did play that game! It was called Donkey Kong and the protagonist was Jumpman, because he could jump and he, indeed, was a man. The company Mr. Miyamoto, or Miyamoto-san if you want to be cool about it, worked for was called Nintendo. And after the success of Donkey Kong, they needed more! So they took Shigeru and locked him in a dark room and fed him illicit fungal materials until he decided Jumpman was Italian and named Mario and had a little brother Luigi, and they were plumbers from New York who fought turtles and shit. This game was called Mario Bros, and it did really well too, because it was the 80s and everyone was on drugs. But Nintendo wasn't done with our friend Shigeru just yet. Clearly this man was some kind of savant, and they needed more games. So biggity bam whammy slam, back to the basement with Miyamoto! Around 1983, Nintendo was making moves to create their own home console and they needed a flagship game. And Miyamoto-san was just the guy for the job. So once again, our hero got high as hell against his will on that illin Kyoto Kush and came up with the most popular video game of all time, Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System. Not only did this game help revitalize an all but dead gaming market in North America, but also turn Nintendo, and more importantly Mario, into a household name forever. However, capitalism is a real bitch. You can't just make something good and become the next Bill Gates without somebody trying to cash in on your ideas and/or forced hallucinations. The NES dropped in 1985 in North America and within a year refueled and reinvigorated a market for home consoles that was almost entirely killed off by stupid old Atari and their shit games. But now that consoles were back and becoming all the rage again, a competitor naturally arose. Sega. In 1986, the also Japanese game company Sega released the Master System in the United States, which was a Sega equivalent of the NES. But you know what it didn't have? Mario! So no one gave a shit! As the pudgy plumber was rising to superstardom and becoming the mascot of Nintendo as a whole, the Sega Master System was floundering, and then it kinda died out. Because the Genesis, or Mega Drive, was on the way. Less than 3 years later, in 1989, Sega released the new 16-bit Genesis with blast processing. We had officially entered a new era of gaming. And boy, was there a blast process happening in our pants. Well, maybe not. I mean, maybe for some people, but Mario 3 was also released at the same time, so people were paying attention to that instead. So Sega got super salty about it and went and got their own dankalank and started thinking, what does Nintendo have that Sega don't? And besides forced drug-induced creative torture on their premier game designer, they realized they needed a mascot. A Mario! Sega needed a Mario! But the strain these dudes were smoking was a mixed bag and shit got really weird. 2 years later in '91, the Sega dudes emerged in a hazy cloud and dropped a bomb on Nintendo. A new blue flag. Sonic the Hedgehog. He was fast. He was cool. He had dope shoes and a look on his face that said, "Sup, 90s kids? I too like rollerblades, but I like them more than you and I know more about them, so I am the coolest." And then, well, it was on! From the first time Sonic entered our eyepieces, a war has raged between Mario and Sonic, between Nintendo and Sega. But the question remains, who is better, Mario or Sonic? And that's what we're here to find out! Because behind every multimedia trans-species corporate feud, there lies a simple truth. This just happens to be the truth of Mario versus Sonic, the real truth. Hit it! Sonic! Mario. Mario. Sonic. Two very different characters. Two very different companies. But a comparison that's been going on for, yeah, almost 30 years now. Holy sassafras. There's a lot to look at here, so if I miss anything, there's a space down below for you to yell at me, politely. Let's start with the early stuff. 1985 through 1994. The beginning. Mario is a chubby, friendly plumber from the Mushroom Kingdom who spent his first few adventures running from left to right on an endless quest to save Peach, who was taken way to the right by Bowser. He runs, he jumps, he stomps on turtles and Goombas. He gets flower power-ups and then can fly in later games. He's a versatile guy, always on a mission, Always number one. Always family friendly. Always the red dude. That's Mario. His music is awesome. His games are mechanically sound and have that Nintendo polish. He's an all-around good time, and Super Mario World is one of my all-time favorite games. He also had a few TV shows from the 80s to the 90s. I was particularly in love with the Super Mario World series as a kid, but as an adult, they haven't aged well. I'd still show them to children, but unless I was put in the Shigeru dungeon, I probably wouldn't watch them now. Sonic, on the other hand, is a blue anthropomorphic hedgehog with a cooler-than-you attitude who runs really fast. His games are based around collecting the 7 Chaos Emeralds to thwart the evil Dr. Robotnik's plans for world domination. The music in these games is also sweet. However, unlike Super Mario Bros., Sonic's first game objectively wasn't so great. It was ambitious, but for a game based on speed, there was a lot of necessary slowing down that ruined the pacing of many levels, not to mention Marble Zone. I hate Marble Zone! The controls were iffy as well, making the precision platforming a slow, tedious bitch. The vast majority of this was cleaned up for the sequel, which added Sonic's Luigi equivalent, Tails, into the mix. The game is fantastic, but I gotta be honest, I'm not a fan of Aquatic Ruin. Sonic 3 and Knuckles was another fantastic hit, and the dual cartridge thing blew my mind out of my booty hole as a kid. Plug one game into another to make a big game? Magic, sir. I say it's magic. And finally, Sonic CD was one of the first CD-based games I ever played, and it was good classic Sonic fun, though not as good as 2 or 3 in my opinion. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog also premiered in 1993, and I loved that cartoon. But now I can see that it too was also garbage like the Mario shows. Good garbage, but you know, it still stinks. Whew! A lot of games to cover at once. Overall, not too shabby. At the time, a decision between the two characters was difficult. I love the feeling of Sonic, but also the hominess of Mario. But we still have far to travel on our tale. Let's keep going. 1995 through 2002, the Silver Age. The video game world was becoming a different place. New, more powerful consoles were on their way, and for the two most important gaming icons, it was time to make some formula changes. By this time, the Sony PlayStation was out, as well as the Sega Saturn, a CD-based console capable of 3D graphics that sold like a bag of asses due to the semi-failure of the Sega CD add-on and the complete failure of the 32X add-on. Don't get me wrong, the Sega Saturn is awesome! It just didn't do very well, because Sega's terrible at business. In 1996, Nintendo also entered the 3D gaming market with the N64, and more importantly, Mario 64. Along with Mario, Mario 3, and Mario World, Mario 64 was another generation-defining game. More importantly, it was the best example of a 3D platformer, or really the best example of how to use 3D space at the time. It was monumental and a fantastic game to boot. I mean, people still talk about it. It was that impressive and that important. Sonic, on the other hand, wasn't doing so hot. On the Sega Saturn, we received Sonic 3D Blast, which had an isometric top-down view and sucked balls. It has 3D in the title, but it's not a true 3D Sonic game. The purpose of this 3D was just to give you motion sickness. Like, really, it's bad. Don't even bother with it. Unless you're looking to lose your lunch, then go for it. After that disaster, we were handed Sonic R, a racing game. Sonic R is not only a bad Sonic game, but it's one of the ugliest and most horrible to play games on the Saturn. Things were looking real bad for the Blue Blur. However, despite some poor releases, Sonic's popularity wasn't declining. He got a feature-length movie in 1996 and a new show in 1999 called Sonic Underground. The quality of both is debatable. I don't want to stomp on your nostalgia, but I mean, Sonic Underground? Sonic in a band wanting to save his mother? Did Shroomy Shigeru Miyamoto come up with this? Despite his failures on the Saturn, Sonic would also come back on the far superior Dreamcast for his adventure series, which are, in their own right, generation-defining games. 1998's Sonic Adventure was the first true 3D Sonic game, and at the time it was astounding. Finally seeing Sonic and pals make the jump to 3D was awesome. The games were fast and fun, and that Crush 40 just brought it all together into a pop-punk late 90s icon of a game. In 2001, Adventure 2 followed suit by improving, and also not improving, on the formula laid down by its predecessor. However, a year later, Mario struck back with Sunshine, another picturesque Nintendo gem, once again showing what 3D platforming is all about. Unfortunately, only one of those 3 games aged well, and Sonic wasn't in it. The adventure games, while fun, are full of Sega jank, and Sunshine just has all that Nintendo polish. Bad voice acting, obnoxious bugs and glitches, and bad pieces of gameplay will haunt the adventure titles forever. I went back to revisit Adventure 2 and had to stop because of the horrible Tails and Dr. Eggman stages. Ugh. The rings and the beeps and the bad controls, and don't even get me started on Big the Cat. It was still a good game at the time though. 2003 through 2016, the Dark Ages. After the Dreamcast died, Sega entered a bad place for a really long time. It started with Sonic Heroes, which objectively isn't a bad game. It just wasn't so great in my opinion. It had obnoxious voice acting once again, and the story was meh. However, it played, and mostly without issue. It's a favorite of some, just not me. But on to the garbage that followed. Shadow the Hedgehog was a terrible, edgy attempt at a spin-off, and yes, I played and beat it. And now it's nothing but a meme Sonic with guns. LOL. Lol, 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 lol. But even that wasn't as bad as the glitchy, broken, boring, long loading time, borderline bestiality mess that was Sonic 06, which has the claim to fame as being one of the worst video games of all time. And then we got the fucking Werehog in Unleashed. Just, ugh. All right. Let's check on Mario. I just can't even right now. Mario was actually doing great at the time. He made a 2D comeback with the new Super Mario Bros. Then Galaxy dropped and it was Super Mario 64 all over again. People loved it. It was so good it got a freaking sequel, which no other 3D Mario has gotten before or after. Once again, things kept going Mario's way, but all Sonic had was a mildly successful anime called Sonic X. But then we got Sonic Colors and Generations, which were actually fun. Whoa, Colors was pretty good. It played well and holds up a lot better than Adventure, but lacked the adventure aspect I liked so much about the previous games, especially one. 2011's Generations, on the other hand, was exactly what we needed. It had callbacks to all the good in Sonic, 2D and 3D levels, and was an all-around good game. Most importantly, it was built soundly and didn't always bug out, which is saying a lot for a 3D Sonic title. In 2013, we received Sonic Lost World, which was okay, but totally skippable. But it was okay at least. Like, it was playable. You could get through it. It was a game. We weren't going far, but we were going somewhere. Then there was the big boom that seemed to spell death for our blue, chili dog-eating, furry, wet dream of a hedgehog guy. But first, a side note! Besides Galaxy 2 in 2009, which wasn't even traditional when it comes to 3D Mario, we hadn't really gotten any new standard Mario titles. We got new Super Mario U, which was honestly a rehash trying to cash in on new Super Mario for the Wii, and Mario 3D World, which was fantastic but didn't really feed that Mario 3D itch we all had. Anyway, back to the boom! Sonic Boom! At this point, the entire Sonic team must have gotten addicted to something while trying to come up with some sweet new ideas. And after Generations, things got serious and they needed an intervention. Because Sonic Boom was not only a complete revamp of the Sonic world, but it was also broken garbage. Almost as bad as 06! I mean, if you count the redesigns, it is as bad as 06, but I don't know, maybe it's just personal at this point. Either way, it's crap, and the sequel was crap too. No one wanted it at all. Honestly, the show for Boom was 100 times better than the game. They should have just stuck with that. Sonic had become the laughingstock of gaming. Also, at this point, a standard Mario game was nowhere to be found. 2017! In 2017, a miracle happened. Unlike Mario, Sonic hadn't seen a true return to form since his jump to 3D in '98. He just got a ton of shit 3D games and some not that great Game Boy and DS titles. But last year, we got what we wanted. Not only a 2D classic Sonic game, but a good Sonic game. And it wasn't made by Sega. Sonic Mania is an amazing callback to a time we thought was gone forever. And although it's a more simplistic 2D game, I find it equally as enjoyable to the brand new 3D Mario we also got last year. Both franchises, longtime competitors and rivals, hit big peaks in 2017 with amazing new titles that have become instant classics for anyone. After the awesome sauce that was Sonic Mania, Forces was released by the Sonic Team, which was, let's just say, nowhere near the level of Mario Odyssey. Maybe the Sonic Team just shouldn't be allowed to work on Sonic games anymore. I don't know. But now that we're all up to date, the question remains. Who's better, Sonic or Mario? Well, if you're talking about all the games, it's Mario. Hands down. Mario really has no bad games. Sure, maybe some are blander than others, but just the fact that they're all playable puts him miles above Sonic in any argument. Don't get me wrong, Sonic has a couple really good games, but none of them peak around where Mario does at his best. However, Sonic has something that Mario doesn't. Something that's kept him around all this time. Character. Mario's shows and cartoons ended in the 90s, but fans have been trying to get a season 3 of Sonic Boom in production for a little while now. Sonic has so much character and personality thanks to his games and shows that it's hard to ignore him, let alone not like him. He has definition, an attitude, and cool demeanor that Mario simply lacks. He even had his own comic book series. Mario himself is frustratingly boring in that I must appeal to everyone kind of way. He has no purpose and no real backstory. I find it hard to invest myself in him. So the question really is, what's more important to you in the fight? The games or the character? I'd love to know what you think in the comments, but for me, Mario games will forever outshine Sonic. Though I do like some Sonic titles more than Mario ones. But Sonic will always outshine Mario in the personality department. I'd much rather play as Sonic in a Mario game than Mario in a, well, you get what I'm trying to say. And that's the truth, the real truth. So, yeah, I think that all made sense. It's a lot to cover in one video. Well, if you liked it, you should subscribe and check out our other videos. And if you're already subscribed, make sure to hit that little bell and check all notifications so you don't miss an upload. And if you want more of me, come hang out with me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Treesicle. Every weekday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Grant, the story you never knew boy, and I are playing games. So come hang out and chill for a minute. If you hate us, leave. Who knows, you might even be a little entertained. Anyway, that's all for me today. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all on Twitch. Toodles. Got it. Time to get some food. Woo!